For over 6 decades, the public image of Clint Eastwood has been meticulously carved in stone. The calm, the wise, the stoic pillar of Hollywood. He is the director who works with surgical precision, the actor whose silence speaks louder than any dramatic monologue, and the cowboy who always rides into the sunset alone. You might have thought the man behind the stone-faced persona was above the petty dramas and personal conflicts that define Tinseltown. You thought he was untouchable. You were wrong. At the remarkable age of 95, the legend has finally done what few expected. He has dropped the mask, revealing a side darker and more unforgiving than anyone ever imagined. This isn't a retrospective of his Oscars or box office triumphs. This is his hit list. He is naming 6 of his peers, 6 towering figures of cinema, who he believes fundamentally betrayed him when it mattered most. These weren't simple disagreements over billing or script changes. These were deep, philosophical, and personal betrayals that violated the strict, unspoken code of honor, discipline, and efficiency that Eastwood lives by. They stood beside him in fame and in glory, and then, in his eyes, they stabbed him in the back. And once you hear the full story behind each name, you will understand why the iconic director and actor never forgave and never forgot. This is the definitive analysis of the 6 Hollywood figures Clint Eastwood erased from his life, arranged in ascending order to the single conflict that drove him off his own movie set. Top 6. Jean Seberg, the woman who broke his patience. The celebrity who anchors the bottom of Eastwood's unforgiven list, yet who left a profound and lasting scar on his professional philosophy, is Jean Seberg. She was his co-star in the ambitious, bizarre, and ultimately troubled 1969 musical, Paint Your Wagon. The core lesson Eastwood took from this disaster was brutal and absolute. He swore he'd never mix sympathy with work again. Seberg was, at the time, a fragile and unpredictable figure, famously dealing with immense personal turmoil and already under relentless FBI surveillance due to her controversial political activism. On the set, this internal chaos manifested as emotional volatility. Her emotions were everywhere. One moment, she would be charming the crew with a dazzling smile. The next, she would lock herself in her trailer for hours, bringing the colossal production to a grinding halt. This instability was the complete antithesis of Clint Eastwood's professional persona. He was the picture of focus, punctuality, and an utter allergy to any form of unnecessary drama. By the 3rd week of the shoot, his silent frustration was palpable. A script supervisor later recalled the agony of watching Eastwood during Seberg's unpredictable moments. She would stop mid-scene to earnestly ask about her character's deep internal motivation. Eastwood, who believed in just doing the job, would simply stare at the floor, waiting for her to finish, his internal torment clearly visible. The supervisor noted, "You could see him dying inside." The unforgivable transgression, however, came after the cameras stopped rolling. When Paint Your Wagon bombed at the box office, a film already strained by Seberg's on-set difficulties, she went to the press and publicly claimed that Eastwood's wooden performance dragged the movie down. To him, this was a betrayal of the worst kind. After he had spent months trying to hold the volatile production together, she chose to publicly criticize a colleague. From that moment, she was professionally and personally erased. He never mentioned her name again. If anyone brought her up, he would change the subject, light a cigar, and walk away. Even when the news of Seberg's tragic death broke in 1979, Clint remained characteristically silent. His friends noted that he looked genuinely sad, but his professional guard never dropped. His only quiet reflection on the ordeal was a chilling statement that cemented his code. "Some people aren't cut out for the work, and I don't need to deal with it twice." Top 5. Richard Burton, the wasted talent who pushed Clint's patience. Clint Eastwood's philosophy dictates that you do not waste time, and you certainly do not waste talent. The person who spectacularly violated both of these principles was Richard Burton, his co-star on the 1968 war thriller Where Eagles Dare. The friction between them was pure and simple. It wasn't about fame or ego. It was entirely about a profound difference in work ethic. Eastwood, the ultimate professional, was habitually dressed, ready, and waiting for work at dawn. Burton, by contrast, was in the throes of his legendary, turbulent relationship with Elizabeth Taylor. Every night seemed to end in a bar, and every morning, the production paid the price. Burton would show up late, his lines would be slurred, and he often smelled like the night before. Eastwood was forced to stand there, watching the theatrical giant stumble through take after take. One crew member swore they could visibly see the respect draining from Clint's face like water. Eastwood, true to form, never resorted to yelling or lecturing. He simply waited cold, silent, and increasingly disgusted. After Burton blew the same line for the 10th time, pushing Eastwood's patience to the brink, the quiet director supposedly muttered, "I'm getting paid by the picture, not by the hour." The crew laughed nervously, recognizing the sharp, understated rebuke. But the true final straw came when Burton was overheard by Eastwood, calling the film a mere paycheck job. To Eastwood, this was an intolerable slap in the face. He believed deeply that every single film, regardless of its genre or artistic merit, even an action flick, deserved the full, uncompromising commitment of its actors. Years later, when asked about Burton, Eastwood offered his final, damning assessment, a phrase that summed up the ultimate professional tragedy. Talented guy, wasted talent. The film was a hit, but the professional relationship was dead. For a man who values discipline and commitment above all else, Richard Burton's spectacular self-destruction was unforgivable. Top 4. Tommy Lee Jones, the alpha Clint couldn't tame. The relationship between Clint Eastwood and Tommy Lee Jones on the set of In the Line of Fire in 1993 was always destined for a spectacular, head-on collision. Eastwood recognized the inherent danger immediately, supposedly muttering to a crew member on the first day, "Two bulls in one pen. This won't last." The film provided the perfect duel for two cinematic titans, but behind the camera, it became a cold, silent duel of two fundamentally opposed alpha mentalities. Jones's acting style was intense, demanding, and highly confrontational. He was not the type to take quiet direction. He barked, he argued, he often rewrote his lines on the fly, and critically, he would keep performing and stay in character long after the word "cut" was yelled. This was a direct violation of Eastwood's set philosophy. Clint runs his sets with calm, ruthless efficiency. He watched Jones's over-the-top, demanding method in visible disbelief. A technician recalled that Eastwood would simply stare when Jones remained fully immersed in his role between takes, a look that silently screamed, "What are you doing?" The tension climaxed during a fiercely heated confrontation scene. Jones, fully in character, towered over Eastwood, spitting every line with venom. The director yelled, "Cut!" But Jones kept going, maintaining the glare straight into Eastwood's eyes, refusing to break. The entire crew froze, witnessing the silent power struggle. After an agonizing pause, Eastwood's legendary control reasserted itself. He whispered to his assistant, "Life's too short for that kind of theater." Then, with a quiet finality, he walked off set. The decision was sealed in that moment. Whenever Jones was suggested for future Eastwood projects, the answer was unwavering. Eastwood would acknowledge Jones as a great actor, but then add the definitive separation, "But we don't speak the same language." The translation, simple and absolute, was "never again." They have never reunited, never shared a panel, and rarely mentioned each other in public. In Eastwood's world, only one man can be the alpha, and that man is the one calling cut. Top 3. Barbra Streisand, the perfectionist who provoked the cowboy. If the conflict with Tommy Lee Jones was a clash of alphas, the feud with Barbra Streisand was a Cold War fought over the very soul of filmmaking. This is the one name that, even after all these years, reportedly still makes Clint Eastwood's jaw tighten. The philosophical chasm between them was so immense that he still refuses to say her name in interviews. The conflict began in the early 1980 seconds, as both actors transitioned into directing. Streisand established herself as the ultimate queen of control. She was infamous for demanding 40, 50, and sometimes even 60 takes just to capture a single expression or a specific emotional beat. Eastwood, meanwhile, operated under an almost military-grade efficiency. 2 takes maximum, then move on. His maxim was simple and pure. If it's not real the first time, it's not worth filming. To Eastwood, Streisand represented everything he found wrong with the new, vanity-driven Hollywood. Her methods symbolized control, vanity, and endless overthinking. By the early 90 seconds, the professional difference had soured into open contempt. The feud became public knowledge when Streisand failed to secure a Best Director nomination for The Prince of Tides in 1992. Eastwood was reportedly overheard delivering a razor-sharp insult to a friend. Maybe if she made decisions faster, she'd finished more than 3 films in 15 years. The comments spread like wildfire, defining the industry's perception of their rivalry. The defining moment came with The Bridges of Madison County. Streisand had been attached to direct the project for years, but eventually dropped out due to years of indecision. Eastwood immediately swooped in, rewrote the script to his precise, efficient vision, and delivered a quiet, emotionally devastating masterpiece. It was a monumental artistic success, earning Meryl Streep an Oscar nomination and achieving the ultimate victory for Eastwood. Revenge delivered purely through competence, without having to utter a single direct word. For Clint Eastwood, Streisand remains the symbol of the cinematic betrayal of instinct, representing hesitation, excessive control, and the death of instinct. His code is clear. You pull the trigger once, not 50 times. TOP2. Michael Moore, the man who pushed Clint too far over American Sniper. The conflict with Michael Moore transcends professional disagreement. It is a pure, unadulterated war of ideology, with roots stretching back decades. The moment Moore compared Eastwood's Oscar-nominated film American Sniper to Nazi propaganda, he didn't just trigger an industry clash. He pulled the trigger on a rivalry that had been simmering for years. Eastwood didn't yell. He just froze Moore out forever. The tension had been public since 2005. At the National Board of Review Awards, Eastwood made his infamous public threat: "If Michael Moore ever shows up at my door with a camera, I'll kill him." The room nervously laughed, but Eastwood's dead serious demeanor made it clear. That wasn't a joke. It was a stark, unapologetic line in the sand. Eastwood's life is defined by a fierce commitment to discipline, quiet service, and old-school honor. He views soldiers with uncompromising respect, seeing them as heroes. Moore's brand of documentary filmmaking, especially Fahrenheit 9/11, was seen by Eastwood as grandstanding, politics disguised as art. The ideological core of the feud, as Eastwood once stated, was simple. Moore sees soldiers as pawns, while he sees them as heroes. It was fundamentally about respect. The final, absolute breaking point came nearly a decade later. Moore mocked American Sniper online, writing that the film reminded him of the Nazi sniper movie in Inglourious Basterds. Moore claimed it was just a joke, but sources close to Eastwood reported that the director was livid. A longtime collaborator explained, "He doesn't forget insults. He deletes them, and that's exactly what he did." Eastwood has worked with people from every political stripe, but his unwavering line is drawn at anyone who mocks soldiers. To his mind, Moore didn't just cross that line, he spit on it. Today, if Moore's name enters the conversation in Eastwood's presence, the discussion ends immediately. Top 1. Leonardo DiCaprio, the golden boy who wasted Eastwood's time. The single, most shocking celebrity on this list is Leonardo DiCaprio. The ultimate betrayal, the one that broke Clint Eastwood's patience entirely and led to him walking off his own movie set, wasn't about ideology, ego, or alcohol. It was about the most cardinal sin in the Eastwood Code: wasting time. The pairing for J. Edgar in 2010 was initially viewed as an unprecedented cinematic match. The master of efficiency directing the master of preparation. But the insiders quickly understood the quiet horror unfolding. From day one, DiCaprio's exhaustive process clashed violently with Eastwood's minimalist approach. Leo would arrive with folders of notes, pages of historical research, and meticulously marked-up FBI memos. Crew members noted that DiCaprio came in like a detective trying to solve me, which rapidly evaporated Clint's patience. The legendary Eastwood efficiency was being challenged by a younger generation's methodical, endless quest for perfection. Clint reportedly joked once that he wasn't the case, but beneath the humor was genuine, growing irritation. The breaking point arrived during the filming of a crucial emotional breakdown scene. DiCaprio was flawless, nailing the raw, powerful scene in a single take. The room was silent, and Clint uttered the highest praise possible in his world. Perfect. Cut. But DiCaprio, driven by his meticulousness, wanted another take, then another, and another. By the 6th take, Eastwood had reached his limit. He was no longer behind the camera. He was leaning on the craft table, coffee in hand, his face a stone mask. When someone gently asked if he was okay, he muttered the definitive judgment on their incompatibility. "He's still searching for something I already found." He walked off his own movie set. When filming wrapped, there was only silence. Eastwood's silence. In subsequent casting meetings, DiCaprio's name would appear, and Eastwood would shake his head, conceding, "Great actor, but not my kind. They have never reunited, never shared a stage, and never exchanged a word since that production. To Clint Eastwood, perfection isn't about doing it again. It's about doing it once and never wasting another second. This list of 6 names is not a collection of petty grudges. It is the ultimate psychological blueprint for Clint Eastwood's success and survival in Hollywood. The feuds with Leonardo DiCaprio and Barbra Streisand define his professional ethics. The clashes with Michael Moore and Tommy Lee Jones define his personal honor. Principle of efficiency and instinct. The director of Unforgiven believes in the single, perfect pull of the trigger. Those who use dozens of takes, Streisand, or exhaustively over-research a scene, DiCaprio, are committing the cardinal sin of wasting the only finite resource, time. Principle of discipline and commitment. Eastwood demands quiet service and absolute respect for the craft. Richard Burton's alcoholism and Seberg's public critique were not personal slights but professional violations of the highest order. Principle of the alpha's honor. On his set, his calm, efficient method must be respected, Jones. In his world, there is a fundamental respect owed to soldiers and national service, a line Michael Moore unforgivably crossed. The common thread is that Eastwood's response to every betrayal is the same, and it is the ultimate act of finality: silence. He doesn't engage in the theater of yelling or public feuding. He simply deletes, freezes out, and walks away. His silence is the sharpest weapon, a verdict far colder and more absolute than any public confrontation. He is the man who never forgave, because he believes that some people, once they cross that line, are simply not cut out for the work. And now we ask you, was Clint Eastwood right to demand such an intense, unyielding level of discipline and honor from his colleagues? Or did his famous, enduring silence go too far? Tell us what you believe in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Behind the Lights, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into Hollywood's darkest secrets.